He's been a mentor to you over these years. I'm sure the two of you have had many opportunities over these past several years to talk about race. What has he said to you that stands out, Reggie, in your mind right now?
I think we've talked about some, and I think some of the biggest things that we've talked about, I mean, the fact that he and I had such different interactions as young African-American men growing up. He went to Occidental and then to Columbia, didn't play sports, and myself, I went to a university that had similar demographics to Columbia and to Occidental to do, but I played college athletics, and I think, I didn't have sort of the struggles that some people probably have, because I think, in the world of sports, I think it's one of the few areas that actually sort of bridges, cultures, races, socioeconomics. But I do think that, and he talks about it in his book, we've come a long way as a country, but we still have a very long way to go.
Did you have the same experience as he had? He spoke personally when he said, and I'm going to just sort of paraphrase a little bit what he said. He said the experience of being followed when he goes into a department store as a young man. He said that included me. He said there are very few African-American men who haven't had the experience of walking across the street and hearing the locks click on the doors of cars. That happened to me. He said there are very few African-Americans who haven't had the experience of getting on an elevator and a woman clutching her purse nervously, holding her breath until she had a chance to get off. That happens often. He suggested it happened to him as well. Have those kinds of things, Reggie, and you're a lot younger than the president, happened to you?
I would say that for most people who look like me or look like the president, unfortunately, I think there are times and there are places where when you look and sound a certain way, you're not always sort of given the benefit of the doubt. And that goes not only for race, I think that goes for gender and for sexuality as well. Me personally, I've had those experiences happen to me. I think I probably haven't had them happen to me as often as other people, because I come from a place where I've spent a bunch of time with people like the president and people like Coach K, who are sort of validators for folks who don't know what it's like, or folks who aren't necessarily close to people who look different than them. So I probably have gotten more of a break and probably have been received more openly than most people who were my peers. And to say that that's fair, no. To say that I understand it, I do. Perspective is a powerful thing, and everyone comes from different places and everyone has different histories. And as we grow as a country and as a nation, perspectives will change.